Dom time. Now, Dom Giordano.
All right, it is Dom time. What a turn of events. We've seen yesterday, we saw these Israelis receiving back from Hamas the remains, the coffins of toddlers and a mom. We've seen this all too much, right? And yet we have people in this country, even post October 7th, who not only support these animals, but they want to be mainstreamed in doing it, among other things. One of them, the biggest one on college campuses, is Students for Palestine. So over at Rowan University, and I think our guest was somebody who helped at some way, shape, or form to propel this forward a bit. He's a member of the Facebook group Make NJ Red, helped to lead the effort against Rowan, Students for Justice in Palestine, after this violent poster was displayed as their greeting card. Come and join us. He's been involved in local politics, recently ran for the Voorhees School Board. And the bottom line is this. The university did the right thing, and they suspended, I guess, for now, the Students for Justice in Palestine group. And then they put them back in under pressure from an alleged First Amendment group that won't come on my show, even though they came on multiple times before, because we differ over this. So the broader issue is, I think this is interesting. Is this First Amendment? Is this really First Amendment? Does the First Amendment allow groups like these Students for Justice in Palestine that continue to engage in what they did on college campuses, harassment, threats, and a violent poster? We'll ask our guest to describe it, and you see if it passes the test. And remember, Rowan did not suspend students. They suspended the group, which gets student fees and money and gets the sense of being mainstream. Students for Justice in Palestine is not a mainstream group to me, probably to you. Let's go to Eric Simkin here on Talk Radio 1210. Hey, Eric, thank you very much, and thanks for being one of the people who brought this to public attention.
Thank you very much for having me, Dom. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to bring this to light, and that's really my ultimate goal in my activities. I'm just really a dad that wants to provide the best place to live for my children, for my family, and really for all families. And I view these types of groups and activities as the antithesis to that.
So,
yeah,
Eric, where does it stand now? So they suspended, or we're going to investigate, and then they put them back in because of this group fire that I was talking about. Where does it stand now with Rowan?
Where it stands right now, according to the Dean of Students, his name is Kevin Coet. He's very responsive to me, by the way. I've spoken to him several times on several other topics and issues over the last year or so. But originally, he just said, we're going to investigate it. And then I thought about it after our conversation. I said, well, I really need you to articulate in writing what your assurances are going to be that it's going to maintain safety for the students there, a total lack of intimidation of those students, because that's how these groups are winning, because not enough people are aware of what their antics, tactics, and objectives are. And we see it all the time in the news, in other areas, but it's right here at our doorstep here in South Jersey. And as of right now, on I believe it was the 18th, they were reinstated to be recognized as a student government organization. So when I first approached Dr. Coet, and he told me that, hey, we're just going to, the meeting, we can't stop and all this stuff, I thought about it, and I sent him back an email. And that email basically said, if this was a white supremacist group with a picture of a noose on a poster saying, come to our meeting, let's see, and hear our views, or a Hamas or a ISIS flag, saying, hey, we hate America, death to America, because it's not just a Jewish issue. This is an anti-American group. And unfortunately, if you're talking about, the two children, the mother and an elderly man, Mr. Lifshitz, and the Beavis family being returned in coffins with the celebrations that you're seeing with Rejoice and music playing of celebration, it's basically saying that the pro-Palestinian movement. And the word Palestinian, by the way, phonetically, there's not even a P sound in Arabic. So, there's issues there, but let's leave it what we're calling it for now. And, what's happened is that the word pro-Palestinian really equates to neo-Nazism, because they want to hurt and destroy people that were born a certain way. When they came in on October 7th, they didn't say, let's go find the Democrats, let's go find the Republicans in Israel. They said, let's go kill Jews. So when you do that, that's genocide. There's been no genocide going the other way. In 1967 or 1948, let's say, there was 25,000 refugees that left the land of Israel, which is currently the land of Israel. And now there's 2 million. So there's been no genocide. There's been a defense of our sovereignty and our safety in Israel and abroad. And
okay, Eric, I wanted to come back to this too. Devil's advocate here. So Fire, Dan and I were shocked. They alerted us to this. That's why we knew. And they were celebrating that they got Rowan to reinstate this group. So again, no individuals were kicked out of Rowan. By reinstatement, they get student fees, they get office space, and they get the tacit endorsement. They're a mainstream group, which you and I agree they are not. So what do you say to those who say, though, clearly, even though I think this is agitating for violence, this picture with the kid, with the man with the slingshot, and we know the intifada and where that came from, that is protected speech. That's First Amendment protected speech, and the college essentially has to let them in there.
Hate speech is not protected under the United States Constitution. I carry around a copy of that Constitution in my pocket, because every time I feel like our rights are being infringed upon, I read it to make sure whether I'm on the right or wrong side of it. Mm-hmm. And hate speech has never been and never will be protected under the First Amendment. And realistically,
what are you defining as hate speech, though?
Hate speech is a graphic of, a depiction of David versus Goliath, for example, which is really what that means. The million people that were hurling stones to kill Israelis in 1993, that graphic itself. And hate speech is, from the river to the sea. That just means a total eradication of not just the land of Israel, because there is land in Israel, but Israel represents also the people of Israel, and that's all Jewish people.
So you're saying this is a call to violence, extermination, genocide?
In many, many cases, I have not been to too many peaceful protests that are occurring, and I've been to many. And, as we've seen on the news, they're not peaceful. I mean, we just look at Brooklyn, 2 nights ago.
Right.
That was a protest. If you show me examples of a group sitting around and singing Kumbaya, one of these things, okay, but I haven't seen that at any of the encampments. And when they go and flush out the encampments, what do they find? And this is a national group that's disseminating this information, graphics, and toolkits. They actually have a toolkit, and teaching children, these students in this case, how to be activists. Now, if my kid's at college and that's what they're learning about, I will tell you that I would take them right out of the school, because I didn't send my kids to college to learn how to be activists. I told them I want them to learn how to be productive members of a society. And so from a freedom of speech perspective, your freedom of speech stops at my nose. And when it affects my ability to my peaceful enjoyment of my life, and I don't just mean me, I mean for all people, that's where the First Amendment stops and civil rights, infractions begin.
Well, I think that's been litigated, maybe not in court, but we saw the 3 college presidents, 2 of them are out, et cetera, talking about what happened on college campuses and trying to say, I guess, what about freedom of speech? And that was rejected, just as you said, that right ends where we're stressing violence, attacks, harassment, mainly upon people they think are Jewish, but it could be upon Americans also. So, Eric, what would you like to see done now? What happens next?
The next step is for people that literally have a pulse and a brain and understand that there's something wrong. The easiest way to activate yourself is to make phone calls and emails to the people that are holding the purse strings, from a funding perspective, Rowan shouldn't be giving a penny to any organization that's infringing on the comfort and the ability for any student or any other person, for that matter, to be walking around campus.
Well, let me go back, Eric. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let's go back and play it out. Since Fire wouldn't come on with me, which is shocking, they're a First Amendment group, I'll be the devil's advocate with you and saying, Eric, don't they have a right to put this type of stuff up? Does that really put you in fear? Don't you have to grow up a bit here and deal with the fact they're just expressing a point of view?
All right, so you have a seed that you want to plant, and you plant the seed, and then you water it, you cultivate the soil, and eventually it grows into a plant, and then further on spores come, and birds and stuff come and spread those, and then there become trees and a forest, and eventually, we're not just talking about the seedling of First Amendment protected speech. We're talking about massive infiltration of people's freedoms by allowing that seed to grow into something bigger. I was told, well, it's only a few students. They're not really doing anything. We don't know what they're doing and what they're talking about. There's no I'm not in the room to know. I mean, who do I trust? Me. That's who, to make that determination, but I can't be. So, unfortunately, you don't know till you know. This same group, by the way, is having outside influencers, not from the college, because they're the same group of people on the Instagram page that also initiated a student walkout for Palestine at the Eastern Regional High School in Voorhees, New Jersey.
Remember
last
year. Yeah.
And and they showed up. It was actually a 36-year-old man, that's influencing these children. I mean, I could tell you this: a 36-year-old man is talking to my child that's under 18. I think that's a problem. So,
all right.
No,
so Eric, then who should people contact at Rowan then?
The Dean of Admissions, his name is Kevin Coet. I think that his email address has something like a Dean of Students at rowan.edu. And P.S., Mr. Rowan that left that $100 million endowment, he was a devout Christian. And I asked the dean, I said, how do you think Mr. Rowan would feel about his endowment being used to perpetuate this? And that's when they did take action. So you have to know what the hot buttons are, and you can't call up yelling and screaming at him or sending him nasty grams. Because unfortunately, that's not what gets the response. Showing up to a counter protest, when they were suspended, they actually enlisted the help of the Democrat Socialists of America to come and do a counter protest at the Owl down there, a statue on campus. That's a whole different organization.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's just not okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wouldn't want my kids anywhere near a Democrat Socialist of America with their red and white fist-raised flags walking down the street literally like Nazis used to do in Skokie, Illinois, for example. It can't happen, and we can't allow this to fester. It's like when you spread a light on a bunch of cockroaches. Yeah, they're going to spread out, but if you don't do something to get rid of them or keep them out, they're going to come back, and that's what's happening. I'm not calling anybody a cockroach. I'm just using it as a
I hear you. Well, Eric,
analogy.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing this to light. Again, just let Dan know any updates on this, anything else that you see around this. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to add one last thing. On February 24th on the Rowan campus, Neil Lazarus is going to be a guest, and they're going to be teaching people how to combat anti-Semitism, and that's on February 24th at 6 o'clock p.m. At one of the halls down there. You'll be able to find that, and you can find it on my Facebook, Eric Simkin. And I very much appreciate you shedding light.
Thank you, Eric, very much. Simkin, Eric Simkin. All right, the thing that stunned Dan and me was the fact this group Fire. You've heard them with all the hosts here, I'd say, over the years. We've had them on for one thing or another. Defense of the First Amendment, usually conservative, somebody who says something politically incorrect. Okay. They were touting that they got this group reinstated. We said, come on and defend that. Not in any, we like what they usually do. They said, nah, we'll pass on this one. It's just still not understandable to me. You heard what the stake is here. Come on, Rowan, you were right the first time. This is the group that you hear nationally. We know if you put a group, as he said, can you imagine a KKK group, the Noose, some kind of group that is hostile to something that the left doesn't like? You can imagine what we would hear from representatives. They don't have the right to be funded and to be mainstream. That's the bottom line. That's what Rowan's doing. They want to spout these things themselves. They can do that. But even then, during these college protests, telling people you're going to kill them, you're going to behead them, do all this stuff in the college campus, the college can take action on that. It's just annoying that people scream freedom of speech on this. What they're really doing is threatening. There's a difference. 855-839-1210. Love to get you and give me your reaction to that. Thanks to Dan for tracking him down. And right now, it's time for...
It's Dom.
כל עוד בלבב ונימה נפש יהודי הומייה לפת אל מזרח קדימה עין לציון סופיה עולה בארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון